There is none like him. When we win, he's our champion. But then we can lose. We always win. He's our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like him. With him we win. He's our champion. With him we can lose. We always win. He's our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like him. When we win, he's our champion. With him we can lose. We always win. He's our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like him. With him we win. He's our champion. With him we can lose. We always win. Our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like him. With him we win. He's our champion. With him we can lose. We always win. He's our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. None like him. With him we win. He's our champion. With him we can lose. We always win. He's our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. And there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah. Hallelujah. For the King who is victorious. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. the awesome, yeah. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, who is the awesome, yeah. And there is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. There is none like you. With you we win. Our champion. We can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. We lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah. Hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Who is the awesome, yeah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome, yeah. None like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Yahuwah is the awesome. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome, yeah. And there is none like you. With you we win. Champion. With you we can lose. We always win. sing hallelujah, hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our Savior. We sing hallelujah, hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there's none like you. With you we live, you're our champion. With you we can we always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah, and there is none like you. With you we win. You're champion. With you we can. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, hallelujah, We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you can we always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the all God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. We can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're champion. With you we can lose. We always win. Our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome Yah. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. is none like you. With you we are our champion. You we can we always win. You're our champion. Oh, 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 oh. You are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can we always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can we always win. Champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can we always win. Our champion. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, for the King victorious. We lift our hands, we lift our voice, we celebrate our champion. Sing hallelujah, for the King who is victorious. You are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can we always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. Our champion. With you we can we always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can we always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. You we can we always win. You're our champion. You are the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. And we always win. you we live, you're our champion. You we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, we lift our hands. We lift our voice. We celebrate our champion. We sing hallelujah, hallelujah. King who is victorious. Yahuwah is the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, Yahuwah is the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we win. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. There's none like you. With you we live. You're our champion. With you we can't lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, you are the awesome God. There is none like you. With you we live. You're our champion. With you we can lose. We always win. You're our champion. Oh, this great day as we've gathered here to celebrate Yom Shabbat, a time of rest, and also in our time of resting, a time of learning, a time to come together that we may learn, reinforce our belief in the Torah. We're going to begin this great rising with the Baruch of the Torah. With me, Baruch Yahuwah. Baruch Yahuwah. The Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
Baruch is Yahuwah. Baruch is Baruch one.
The Baruch one.
For all eternity. Baruch Atah. Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme
King of the universe.
King.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
And gave us his Torah.
His Torah.
Baruch Atah.
Baruch Atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Give of the Torah. And it is so.
And it is so.
Baruch Atah.
Baruch Atah.
Yahuwah, our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
The Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us.
Baruch Atah. Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Giver of the Torah.
Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. once again, we do give Abba Yahuwah thanks for allowing us to be back at this one more time. Now we're going to have a reading of the Ten Commandments by Apostle Brown coming from the book of Leviticus, chapter 5, verses 6 to 22.
Aleph, I am Yahuwah, your power, which brought you out of the land of Mizraim from the bed of bed. You shall have no other power before me. You shall not make you a graven image or any like anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them, nor serve them, for I Yahuwah, your power, and jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the offers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate, showing mercy unto thousands of them that harm me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it. For Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name in empty. Yallet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart, as Yahuwah your power has. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. You shall not do any work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your servant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gate, that your master and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mizraim, and that Yahuwah brought you out of there through a mighty hand by a stretched out. Therefore, Yahuwah your power commanded you to keep the Sabbath day. Honor your Abba image, Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged, and that it may go well with you in the land which Yahuwah your power is about to give you. Why? You shall not murder. Saying, neither shall you commit adultery. Neither shall you steal. Neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You regard your neighbor's issue. Neither shall you cover your neighbor's bed, his field, or his master, maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more, and he wrote nickels of stone, and delivered it unto me.
And it is so. And it is. Now we're going to turn our attention to the book of Yahushua, the son of Nun, chapter 1:8. Verse 7 says, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Not from it to the right hand, to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, to fit a time of confession. Let us say this together. I will not let the scroll of the Torah depart out of my mouth. But I shall meditate in it day and night, that I may observe to do that is written in it.
According to all that is written in it.
But then I shall make my way prosperous, and act wisely. So look at your neighbor, tell your neighbor, and you shall act wisely. Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, act wisely, and you shall act wisely. Take your hand and place it over your heart and say, I shall act wisely. Come on. Abba Yahuwah, I shall act wisely. I endeavor to act wisely. I endeavor to act wisely. And it is so. Let us have a song. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my and all that is within. Baruch Yahuwah, oh my soul, and all that is within me. I will baruch your name. I will baruch your name. I will baruch your name. I will Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. Oh, my and all that is within me. I know and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your I will your name. I will your name. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. I will oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. Oh, my soul, and all that is within me. Oh, my soul, and all that is. I will your I will your name. I will your name. I will your name. Don't move his name. Leviticus chapter 6, verses 1 through 18. These are the commands and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might enter the land where you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandsons of your life, and that your days may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yisrael, and observe to do it, that it may be with you, and that you may increase mightily as your full power of your promise you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Hear, O Yasrael, our Supreme One. Hear, O Yasrael, our Supreme One, is Akkad. Shema Yasrael, your Savior, Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall ahab Yahuwah, your Supreme One, with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you, these are, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, to fall, to bind. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which you swore unto your fathers, to Abraham and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not houses, full of all great things which you filled not, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant. When you shall be full, then beware lest you forget Yahuwah, which brought you forth out of the land of the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power, and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after other power, the power of the people which are round about. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled to you, and he destroy you from off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power, Masa. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah and his testimonies and his statutes which he has commanded you. That which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may the great land which Yahuwah your Abba is about to give you. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. All right, let us have the song. Great is Yahuwah. Sing with me, how great is Yahuwah. Oh, sing how great, great is Yahuwah. Come on, sing with me, how great is Yahuwah. Sing with me, how great is Yahuwah. Oh, sing how great is Yahuwah. Singing, oh, how great is Yahuwah. Sing with me, how great is Yahuwah. Oh, sing how great is Yahuwah. The name above all names. The name above all names. And you are worthy of our praise. And our heart will sing how great is Yahuwah. You're the name above all names. You're the name above all names. You are worthy of our praise. And our heart will sing how great is Yahuwah. Singing, oh, how great is Yahuwah. Sing with me, how great is Yahuwah. Oh, sing how great is Yahuwah. Singing, oh, how great is Yahuwah. Sing with me, how great is Yahuwah. Oh, sing how great is Yahuwah. Singing, oh, how great Sing with me, how great is all of thee, how great is singing, oh, how great is sing with me, how great is all of thee, how great, how great, how great is the name above all names. You are worthy of our praise. And our hearts will sing how great is you're the name above all names. You're the name above all names. You are worthy of our praise. And our hearts will sing how great is the name above all names. Name above all names. You are worthy of our praise. And our hearts will sing how great is come on, sing with me, how great, how great is sing with me, how great is how great, how great, how great is singing, oh, how great is sing with me, how great is oh, sing how great, how great is singing, oh, how great, how great is how great oh, sing how great, how great, how great is you're the name above all names. You're the name above all names. You are worthy of praise. And our hearts will sing how great is you're the name above all names. You are worthy of our praise. And our hearts sing how great is singing, oh, how great, how great is how great oh, see how great, how great, how great singing, oh, how great is sing with me, how great oh, see how great, how great is come on, praise the Lord, great, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. You're great, hallelujah. You're magnificent, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Great, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. You're worthy, you're worthy, you're worthy, hallelujah. How great is all we have to do is look in the mirror and see ourselves. You can, from there, determine how great He is. He is great. He's awesome. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. And I am this great. Hallelujah. You're so worthy. You're so worthy. And we appreciate you so much for all that you're doing, all that you've done, and all that you get for people. And it is so.
And it is so.
The 15 sacrifices of the wickedest nation, hateful and exceeding offensive on the Yahweh, but the prayer of the upright is life. Mishnah 3 and 4. So shall you find great on high esteem in the sight of judgment of Yahweh and man. And it was to him and 1 Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the instruction, and doth meditate upon it. And it is so. Ibram 11 and 6, but it is impossible to please him. But he that cometh to Yahweh, he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. It takes obedient, diligent listen. And it is so. 34 and 15. The eyes of Yahweh are upon the upright, and his ears open unto our cry. Verse 17, the upright cry, and Yahweh heareth, and delivereth us out of all our troubles. Acts 1 and 8, for we shall receive power after that the dash is come upon us, and we shall be witnesses unto him both in Jerusalem and in all Judea, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And it is so.
It is so.
33 and 4, Ruach HaKodesh, Yahweh hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life, so the life giver.
He's a life giver.
Say it again, he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
4 and 8, but truly I am full of power by the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahweh, and of just to declare unto Yaakov his transgression, and to Yahweh our sin.
It is so.
Yehukin and Moshe 11:12. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire, when you pray, believe, receive them, and you shall have them.
It is so.
In Alex chapter 5, verse 4 and 5, for whatsoever is born of Yahweh overcome, and this is the victory that overcometh the world, even our belief. He that overcometh the world, he that believeth that Yahushua is the Son of Yahuwah. Yehukin and Aleph, chapter 2, verse 5 and 6. For whoever keeps his Torah, the Ahavah is perfected in him. By this we know that we are in him. So the our to be perfected is that we have to keep his Torah.
Right.
There's no way around it. Verse 6, he says he is in him, ought himself also to walk just as he walked. He walked with a discipline. He walked disciplined, and he walked according to instructions of our Yah. He never strayed from it. He who abides in him ought himself also to walk just as he walked.
And it is so.
And it is so. It's important that we walk as he walked, and that we do as he. And it is so.
It is so.
All right. Leviticus chapter 11, verses 13 through 22. And it reads, it shall come to pass, if you listen carefully to my commandment this day, to Ahav Yahuwah your power, and to serve him with all your heart, and with all, that I will give you the rain of your land in its due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that you may gather in your corn and your wine and your oil, and I will grass in your fields, power, that you may eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart not deceive, and you turn aside and serve other power and worship them. And then Yahuwah's wrath be ignited, and he shut up Shemayim, and that there be no rain, and that the land will not have fruit, unless you perish quickly off the great land which Yahuwah gives you. Therefore shall you lay in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that it be as frontlets in your eyes, to fall to bind to the mind. And you shall teach them your children's them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall write them upon the doorposts of your bed, that your days may be multiplied, and the days of your children in the land which you will swore to your to give them as mine upon the earth. For if you shall carefully keep all these command you, to do them, to Ahav Yahuwah your power, to walk in all his halakha unto him. And we know verse 23 summed up in one word, victory. He will give us victory over our enemies, and he will give us the victory over every single phase. But we have to follow his instructions. Someone might say, well, why do you always read the same ones? Because that's what he gave me. Because it's important that this stays not in our minds, but that it stays a part of us, and that we are reminded daily, and we're supposed to have him, but not just our lips, but with our whole being, with your mind, your heart, your soul, your strength. That you will have him so that sometimes it hurts, and not in a bad way, but in a great way, because you're just flesh, and we are limited to the things that we are able to do. But we know the greatest thing that he requires of us, and that's for us to live for him. That's what he requires of us, just to live with him. But you know, once again, you want to praise him, you want to accept and know without a shadow of a doubt that you in for the long haul, and do the him, and that you want him to know without a shadow of a doubt that you're not going to betray him. That you're not going to betray him. And so when you do that, you want to make sure that you are expressing that in everything you do on a day-to-day basis. From the time we rise to lay down our eyes, we want to make sure that we are doing every instructions. And not just doing it because, I don't want to say just because we're made, but because we are hard to do it. Because we understand that this is the greatest people that we could ever have. And that's his instruction. Because he didn't give everybody, he gave it to us. And it is so. And it is so. All right, we have come to this portion of our declaration of healing and joy for our Sabbath rest. Repeat this with me. Abba Yahuwah. In the name of Yahusha. Our mind, we subdue ignorance. With Torah knowledge. And knowledge. Of Torah truth. We claim healing.
Shalom.
Deliverance. And salvation. We decree truth in the lives of your people.
Our people.
Yes, I am. We unite. Not to fight. Each other. But the enemy of our belief. And it is so. Once again, we are not enemies. The only time we become enemies, and one of us should make up our minds and defend. Because then we have nothing to base our fellowship on. And it is so. How can two walk together except there be an agreement? And if we're walking together, what is our agreement based upon? My agreement is based upon his instructions. Somebody will say, well, outside of that, they ought not be your friends, they ought not be your associates. Then they ought not be so close to you that they can influence you to do things that are not Yahuwah. We're supposed to be influencing them, not them influencing us. And when it gets to a point that influence is no longer acknowledged as influence, it's time to bounce. Like a bad check in a rubber mold. Because no longer, if you're not careful, you will find yourself leaning more to doing what they do instead of them doing what you do. And that's keeping the Sabbath, and that's the feast, and above all, that is a Yahuwah, your heart, and with all your soul, all your mind. Once again, it's so important that we understand that, because we don't want to just be going through the motions, just because we're trying to hurt us. Because eventually, it's going to show. Whenever I was going to say this, we're going to do our the sealing of our prayer and the sealing of our praise and worship. Whenever you are in a relationship, whether it's a relationship on a job, or with a person, or with people, you know when it's a real relationship and when it's genuine, because no matter what happens, you continue to follow in that relationship. When it is not genuine, when things don't go a certain way or meet a certain criteria, then that's when you see where a person's heart is. Because then one or two things: either they're gonna stick and stay, or they're gonna leave. Like I said, they're gonna bounce like a bad chick or a rubber ball, because they're not gonna maintain that wall. We don't want to do Yahuwah like that.
Right.
We don't want to get to a point because things are not moving fast enough or not moving in the manner that we feel they are. We become defectives. We become breakers. We become no longer committed and dedicated to Him and to what He has given us. And so we can't afford to do that. We need to make sure that it's because we know who He is and because Him choosing us to be His special people.
That's right.
Don't take that for granted. And things that we could ever have. I'm not talking about money. I'm not talking about diamonds, rubies, and golds. I'm talking about an understanding of His instructions. I'm talking about we look at His instructions and look at His word and look and understand it. And understanding may be small bites, small bites that you're understanding, but nevertheless, we're still developing, we're still growing. And that's one of the greatest things us as a people is to be able to look into His writings, hear His voice, and understand. And truly, once again, I'm going to say this, and then we're going to say our confession. As I read the writings, the scrolls, and the instructions about Yahuwah, I remember Him telling me and showing me where He stops. In other words, when you can look and know, even before you see the original or see that what is close to the original writings, and you say, no, that word don't fit in there. I don't know how to exactly explain it yet, but that fit in there. That's a part of a puzzle they put in there, and that's some stuff created and stuck in there or took out. And to see that and then have proof that it is relevant, that's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Because that lets you know that He's speaking and He's guiding and He's leading us because He wants us to know His truth.
That's right.
And He wants us to be hijacked by error and erroneous doctrines and traditions of men. He wants us to walk free in His truth. So I appreciate Him for that. And diligently seeking Him, because He will reward you. And the greatest, again, is being able to understand His instructions, following them as He has commanded us to do so. And it is so. And it is so. And it is so. All right, let us bow before our King as we prepare to seal this time of prayer, praise, and worship. Repeat with me. May the words of my mouth and the deliberation of my heart be desirable before you. O Yahuwah, my Redeemer. May the utterance of my mouth and the deliberation of my heart be desirable before you. O Yahuwah, my Ra and my Redeemer. And my soul. We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 15, and it is so. You may be seated in His presence. I pray everyone will this last night to this morning. I pray everyone had restful time. I pray everybody is excited about Shavuot. As we're making preparations to celebrate it, I'm excited because I'm truly anticipating and expect every day. I'm expecting a mighty move of Abba Yahuwah in the lives of us as a people. I am truly expecting, as always, as we're here today, we want to turn our attention to the world of Wayikra. And we want to look at Zawah, and it's command. It's one word, command. And we're going to look at it in Wayikra chapter 6, verse 8. And going to read 5 verses. Let's read chapter 6, starting at verse 8. This is 2:13. 8. 5.
And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Command Aaron, saying, This is the instruction of the burnt offering. It is the burnt offering because of the burning of all night unto the morning. And the fire of the altar shall be burning in it. And the Kohen shall put on his linen garment, and his linen undergarment sash, and take up the ashes which the fire has consumed with the burnt offering on the altar. Put them beside the altar. And it is so.
And it is. All right. Go ahead on and read, because that goes with that. You wrote verse 8, right? To verse 8. 8. We're looking at 8. We started at verse 8. I'm sorry. You read from 9, 10, 11, 12. 8 to 10. Okay. I'm sorry. I was looking at something. Verse 8. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moses. And verse 9 goes with it. Command Haran and his son, saying, This is the instruction of the burnt offering. It is the burnt offering because of the burning upon the altar all night until the morning, and the fire of the altar shall be burning in it. In my in this verse in 8, it is a reference to the word. It is the small mems. Just give me a second, y'all. Yes. Yes. The small mem, and I want to give them all the letters. The mem, the wa, the zayin, and drash. I'm sorry, the dalit. Also, hey. Those are the letters. And it gives us the footnote. The small male specifies water, and in women it will specify the womb. Here the man's soul is figuratively on the altar if it was not for the animal taking his. This is why when we look at the sacrifice, and it was important for them that whenever they gave a sacrifice, it had to be without blemish, because that animal took the place of them. So you wouldn't want an animal that was maimed, a short leg, one eye, because that represented who you were.
Right.
And so the animal go on the altar and not you. And so this is what it is showing to us in this with this word. All right. Y'all understand?
Yes.
All right. Make sure I make that clear just a little bit. Just to show us that's all right. Let's look at verse 10. And the Kohen shall put garment, and his linen undergarment shall be put upon his flesh. Take up the ashes which the fire has consumed with the burnt offering on the altar, and he shall put them beside the altar. Once again, they were not to come without undergarments. Now, somebody will say, what in the world does that have to do with anything? You have done many cultures and many of people they dealt with didn't have underwear. Are you following me?
Yes.
They didn't have underwear on. And so under their robes or under their, they had to have the proper attire. and they had to have linen. Now, I believe linen is like cotton. It breathes. It helps you because you have to remember they're around heat, so it would help them if they were sweating. So all that was important to all of Yahuwah, how we adorn ourselves, how we dress ourselves. And so this is important right here because once everything had to be done right, and it had to be done that separated them from everybody else. All right. And look what it said in verse 11. And he shall put off his garments and put on other ornaments and carry forth outside the camp unto a clean place. Here we see that he didn't keep on everything as he was in service. He would change the ashes out, take it out. Are you following me? Yes. To a clean place. Fire upon the altar shall be burning in it. It shall not be put out. And the king shall burn wood on it every morning and lay the burnt offering in arrangement, and he shall burn thereon burnt offerings. That meant it had to be done once again a way. And everything they did, they had to follow the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. They could not do what they wanted. They had to do it in the fashion that he had given them to do it. How do we do that in the time we live in? Whatever he has commanded us to do, we need to do it in that fashion, in that manner. Are you following me?
Yes.
You don't add to it, you don't take it from it. Very detailed. Yahuwah always gives us details, and he always gives us where we can understand where and how we're supposed to follow it. Now, verse 13, the fire shall ever be burning upon the altar, it shall never go out. When I look at that, once again, think about us as being the sacrifice. Because the animal took our place, and there was always supposed to be some altar burning. I believe that represents that the Torah should always be burning inside of us. We should always be passionate about it. We should always be compassionate about Yahuwah. We should always be compassionate and have a passion to serve him, but also to share with our and our Kodi the ahab that we have for him, instructions, and not to share them with our mouths, but share them through our lifestyle. That's very important. Keeping it burning. Don't ever let it die. Don't ever let the fire he's placed in you, that he's placed in us as a people, to ahab him and his instructions. Don't ever let out. Don't ever let that die. When somebody said, well, why would I let that happen? Let me tell you something. There are situations and things that will come up in your life if you're not careful that will try to make lose that passion and that fire for the service of Yahuwah. Right. Or to do that, because we are that sacrifice. One thing I've learned is that when those were chosen, these were animals that were domesticated. These were animals that they walk. These were animals. What I mean by that, to follow them. So it was no for them being brought to the altar. You didn't have an ox kicking and bucking and for them trying to get it on the altar, because they were taught how to be disciplined. And so we ought to be the same way, disciplined, and be willing to give our all and place ourselves on the altar of Abba Yahuwah. I give everything to you. I give my heart to you. I give my soul to you. I give my every body, my limbs, my mouth, my ears, my eyes, my everything belongs to you. Right. Nothing is kept. Are you following me? Yes. See, because you have to understand, this is why every part of the animal was important. It was burned to ashes, whether it was cut up and portions were given to it still represented the total man. It still represented or us being on the altar. Right. And so we can't come and give just a portion of ourselves. Right. We have to all or nothing. We have to do it because he doesn't want sacrifice. Right. He wants all of it. Are you following me? Yes. Except the things that he has not asked for. If he didn't, he doesn't want it. But everything about us, he wants it. From the rooter to the tuber, he wants it all. Are you? Yes. All right. Let's read verse 14. Let's read five verses. 14, 17. 14. And this is the instruction. The sons of Aharon shall offer before you before the altar. He shall take of it his hand, the flour of the grain offering and the oil thereof, and all the incense which is upon the grain offering, and shall burn it on the altar for a sweet savor, even the memorial of you. And the remainder thereof shall be eaten. With matzah shall they be eaten in the set apart place. In the court of the tabernacle of the Pentecost, it shall not be baked with leaven. I have given it a portion of my offerings made by fire. It is most set apart as is offering and as the trespass. All the males among the children of Aharon, it shall be a statute forever in the generations concerning the offerings of you. Everyone that touches it shall be made set apart.
And it is so. Once again, verse 14. And the instruction of the grain offering. Once again, instructions. Instructions. The sons of Aaron shall offer it before Yahuwah, and he shall take of it his handful of the flour of the grain thereof, and all the frankincense which is upon the grain, and shall burn it upon the altar for a sweet savor, even the memorial of it unto Yahuwah. Now, once again, the fragrance that help with the smell. That helped with the smell. That aroma, all significant of our prayers going up before our Yahuwah. Significant of ours as we offer up unto him a sweet smelling savor. So we want our prayers to reach him, and we want it to smell good and not stink. Because we're praying effectively or right. And he shall take his hand the flour of the grain of the oil offering, and of the oil thereof, and of the frankincense which is, and shall burn it upon the altar for a sweet savor, even the memorial of it unto Yahuwah. The remainder thereof shall Haran and his sons eat with matzah, unleavened bread. It shall be eaten in the set apart place in the court of the tabernacle of the congregation. They shall eat it. Once again, they will part the offerings. They were partakers of certain offerings, and so they ate it. It's shaped with leaven. It has given unto them for their portion of my offerings by fire. It is most set apart as is the sin offering and as the trespass offering. Once again, partakers, they were servers in the tabernacle, who gave them a portion. They did not serve, and he did not give unto them. So he gave unto them a portion of that what was offered. All right. Verse 19. Let's look at verse 18. I'm sorry. 18. All the males among the children of Aaron shall eat of it. It shall be a statute for generations concerning the offering of Yahuwah made by fire. It shall be set apart. And it is. All right, let's read 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, please.
Yahuwah's favor of Moshe, saying, "This is the offering from around of the sons, which they shall offer unto Yahuwah that day. And he anoints 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a meat offering, special in the morning, and half thereof at night. And a pan shall be made with oil and is baking, and shall bring it in, and bake the pieces of the meat offering shall be offered to Yahuwah. And the priest of his sons, anointed steed shall offer is the statute forever unto Yahuwah. It shall be holy burnt. Every meat offering for the priest shall be holy burnt. It shall not be.
And it is so. Now, this is the offering of Aaron of his sons, which they shall offer unto Yahuwah in the day when he is anointed. The 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for grain offering, half of it in the morning and half thereof at night. it shall be made with oil. It is baked. You shall bring it in, and the baked pieces shall you offer for a sweet savor unto Yahuwah. And the Kohen of his sons that is anointed in his stead shall offer it. It is a statute forever unto Yahuwah, wholly burnt. For every grain offered for the Kohen, it shall not be eaten. So everything was not to be consumed. And he spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto Aaron and to his sons, saying, This is the instruction of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is killed, offering be killed before Yahuwah. It is most set apart. Once again, every place had, or every offering had a place where it would be tended to. You just didn't go everywhere and do. Everything had it is a most set apart. The Kohen that offers it for sin shall eat it. And the set apart place be eaten in the court of the tabernacle of the congregation. So once again, see that the sin offering was eaten too, and it was to be in a set apart place. So they weren't always there. Each place represented. So as they ate and people saw this, they understood and recognized everything that was going on, because everybody was a participant. It wasn't well just half this side over here do, or 6 tribes would do. Everybody that was there was a participant. If you were not bringing a sin offering, you were bringing a free will. If you weren't bringing a free will offering, you were bringing a shalom offering. So everybody stood. So nobody was out without understanding. Everybody understood. And so through this is how they worked, and this is how everything was supposed to work like will. In other words, everything was supposed to work in sync. Do like you're supposed, and we can keep this thing moving, and we can keep it be encouraged and fly through our actions, because he's not going to tell us to do something and then not have our lives bereft by it. Once again, it's important that we follow instructions and we not get out of the will of Yahuwah by trying to do something and making up instructions and making up things that we do. That's a no-no. And when we do that, that's when we find ourselves getting in trouble with our Yahuwah. 7, 28, 29, 30, and chapter 7, verse 1. Come on. 27, 28, 29, chapter 7, verse 1.
Whatsoever shall touch the flesh thereof shall be set apart, when there is sprinkled of the blood thereof upon any garment, you shall wash that whereon it was in the set apart place. But the vessel wherein it is cooked shall be broken, and if it be cooked, it shall be both scoured and made, and agreed. All the males among the Kohen, eat thereof is most set apart. And no sin offering whereof any of the blood is brought into the tabernacle to the utensil.
Reconcile where you at? Verse 30?
Yes.
Reconcile.
Reconcile, and the set apart place shall be eaten. It shall be burnt in the fire. Chapter 7, verse 1. Likewise, this is the instruction of the trespass offering. It is all set apart.
And it is so. Once again, very, very important for us to understand. Sin offering whereof any of the blood is brought into the tabernacle of the congregation to reconcile, our place shall be eaten, it shall be burnt in the fire. Once everything separate, very important that we keep everything separate and understand that everything had a specific way that it was supposed to be done. All right, get this real quick. An ascending offering. This was a free will offering. That is nadab. Sacrifice that was consumed entirely by the fire on the altar. The sacrificial victim must be an animal or bird that is without defect. As the animal is slaughtered, the Kohen catches his blood and sprinkles it on the altar. The animal is then cut up, solely burned. Normally, the simak, the leaning on or the leaning up is on the head of the animal, and the confession accompanies this sacrifice. Though in case of a bird, olah simak is not permitted. This parashat, as the olah sacrifice must only be offered during daylight hours and must burn through the Kohen, therefore needed to be present at the Mishkan on the clock to the sacrifices and ensuring that the fire of the mitzvah altar would never go out. Again, very important that they follow the instructions. Each offering had a specific detailed outline in how it was to be conducted. The minak, which is offering. This was a nadal free will offering of flour prepared with oil and frankincense, usually brought by a person of modest means. Part of the meal offering is burned on the altar, and the remaining part is eaten by the Kohen. The word or minka means gift. Note that any flour offered quickly to prevent the dough from rising, that is unleavened bread, like the sacrifice. Minak offering must be salted. Salt is also a part of covenant, and it's also a preserve. So that's why I was saying they had to bake it, hurry up, get it in there, and eat it. Once again, we're given specific instructions with our offerings. Now, someone would say, well, since we don't offer now, what do we offer? Your praise. You still have to be able to direct these offerings and still find a way and interpret it, not in our own interpretation, but the way that he gave it to us. We are supposed to praise him, that we are supposed to give him the fruit of our what? Lips. So we were supposed to, back then, our forefathers and ancestors were supposed to handle it in a manner that they did, so handle our praise and worship, even your monetary offering. A lot of people don't like to talk about it because they feel like that's supposed to be sex. Shouldn't have to give because we're not in a place to do so. That's not true. Because wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So it's important that we understand, as offered, they offered according to the instructions. Now, we don't have anything that instructs us, about finances. I beg to differ, and it is. It's in Corinthians, where it talks about being able to set aside. So, if we understand these things, so that we don't just read that the relevance of the instructions have been done away with. You may not take animals, but you still have to take an offering. You yourself, and you don't want to present yourself and then present yourself and as though you have nothing else to. Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
Very important for us to understand. Now, the Kohen Haggadah, high priest, offer minnak offerings. First, he was required to offer a minnak canute offering that was given in the morning and afternoon on the first day of his adaf or avodah or bodah, high priest. Second, he was required to offer daily minnak as long as he served as high priest. To give, are you following me?
Yes.
This is not one of those things. Take it and we run with it and we do, but we only do what is comfortable to us. We only do what we feel like and not what we have to put into it. There's a lot more that we have to this walk than just rising in the morning and saying Abba Yahuwah is great. requires so much more of us. All right. Now, let's finish reading. I wanted to read the understanding. Once again, in verse 30, it says, and no sin offering whereof any of the blood is brought to the tabernacle of the congregation to reconcile, and the set apart place shall be burned in the fire. Once again, keeping it separate so that they would not. Now, you have to understand, Yahuwah, very intelligent. Don't ever think that we serve an unintelligent Savior. The mindset, and he understood that our people would be tempted to do something real foolish. And that is why he said, keep it separate. Keep it separate. And continue to read and continue to follow. We will find out that even after all these instructions, our people still to adhere to the instructions because of the stubbornness of their hearts. So it's important that we understand instructions. Now, chapter 7, verse 5, this is the instruction of the trespass offering. It is set apart. Again, you wanted your offering to be accepted. You don't want to just go and hand something off and it not be accepted because you default because you don't follow the instructions. If we don't follow the instructions, our stuff can be rejected. What is it? Your stuff can be removed because you're not offering it right, and we don't want that to happen. Remember in Mishlei 15 and 8, wicked is an abomination, hateful, and exceedingly offensive unto Abba Yahuwah, but the prayer of the right, it is his delight. Sacrifice. It is an abomination. I don't want my abomination. Because prayer, our sacrifice and our prayer go hand in hand. And it is. All right. Let's read 2, 3, 5, and 6, please.
In the place where they kill the burnt offering and trespass offering, and the blood shall be sprinkled around about upon the altar. They shall offer of it all the fat thereof, the tail and the fat, and 2 kidneys and the fat that is on them, which is by the loins and the lobe, with the kidneys he shall take away. The Kohen shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto you. It is a trespass offering. Every male among the Kohen shall eat thereof. It shall be eaten in the set apart place. It is most set apart.
And it is so. Now, in the place where they kill the burnt offering shall they kill the trespass offering, and its blood shall be sprinkled around about upon the altar. Blood covers, and he shall offer of it all the fat thereof. Fat is the shalom, the tail, and the fat that covers the inwards, and the 2 kidneys, and the fat that is on them, which is by the loins, the lobe that is above the liver, with the kidneys he shall take away. They were not to eat that. And the Kohen shall burn them upon the altar for an offering made by fire unto Yahuwah, is a trespass offering. That is why we don't eat the organs of animals. We don't have animals because those things were offered up to Yahuwah. So we don't eat them. You're following me?
Yes.
All right. He says, every male among the Kohen shall eat thereof in the set apart place. It is most set apart. Verse 7. As the offering is, so is the trespass offering. There is one instruction for them. The Kohen, the atonement therewith, shall have it. Now, let's look at the sin offering. This was a required offering to make atonement for certain sins committed unintentionally by an individual. By the high priest, the entire community, the king, or the ordinary people. When we say everybody, that means all.
Yes.
By an individual. Note that there is no explicit sacrifice for deliberate, intentional, and willful sins against Yahuwah, but instead by an early death. Note that the blood for the sin offering was used in the Mishkan flesh, and the hide were to be burned outside the camp. Once again, as we understand each one of these things, so that we will not. So once again, as we, I don't want to use the word dissect, but as we continue to look at the sacrifices and how them to our lives. Once again, we don't want to be doing things, and we don't want to be indulging in things that constantly keep us in trouble where we are outside and where we are not permitted to be in his presence because we continue to mess up. Are you following me? Once again, he gave us these instructions so we wouldn't mess up, that we would always stay in that place with him. Sin offering, once again, intentional sin. When you go out there and deliberately do something that you know is wrong, out there and steal. You don't have to steal, but you do it anyway. You go out there and you commit murder. You do it anyway because you know you're not supposed to, but you just feel like you have the right to do so. Not defending yourself, but you just murder. Not an accident. You just murder them because you feel like you have the right to know. Fornication, adultery. Are you following me? Lying, breaking the Sabbath, not keeping the feast, just blatantly being disobedient. You just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and you feel like you owe nobody. There is no sacrifice for that because you were fully aware of what you were doing before you did it.
That's right.
Are you following me?
Yes.
This is very important because sometimes people do things deliberate and think it's okay. It is not. You do the time. It's important that we understand that. And not to find ourselves deliberately doing something because that day or we just had just one of them moments. That's why we're supposed to keep Son of Nun, chapter 1, verse 8, always ruminating in our hearts.
Right.
Let not this depart out of our mouths, but meditate upon it, that we may observe to do according to all that is written. Then we will make our way prosperous and act wisely. When you act wisely, you're about any accidents. And if it is an accident, then you can truly say out of the heart, that was unintentional. That was unintentional. I was not. That was what I was trying to do. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's just like if something's wrong. And you know, nowadays, when people fight, it's best that if you get into a situation with somebody to try to avoid it. But if you have to go in, and when you go and you get the upper hand and do what you got to do, it's best to get out of Dodge.
Right.
Because you don't know if they're coming up with a gun, if they're coming up with a knife. You don't know if they're coming up with 5 or 6 other people that's going to come. So it's best to get up out the way. Because most of the times, fighting is not like it used to be. And I'm not endorsing it in any way, but I truly believe you ought to defend yourself. Never start anything, but always defend yourself. And if at all possible, try to diffuse it before it gets started. A soft answer turns away wrath. You can easily sometimes from a situation if we would just keep our head and shut up our mouths sometimes. But our mouths get the best of us and we run it like a car. And don't realize you keep running and you're going to have an accident. But there are things that you can diffuse. But if you can and you got to fight your way, get out of there. You're not trying to fight somebody to kill them. You're just trying to get the upper hand and get the advantage so you can get out of the situation. But when you go in there and your mindset is that you allow your anger and you allow wrath to take hold, and now your whole thing is, I'm going to kill this sucker. You ain't going to come back. I'm going to kill your butt because you ain't going to do me like that anymore. You just made up in your mind that you're going to kill him. Are you following me?
Yes.
Once again, you got to know when to stop and when to leave. And when you understand, preserve a life, because I tell you what, it would be better that you do than Yahuwah deals with them.
Right.
But once you've done what you are able to do without that line, then you get out the way. But once again, defending yourself, you have to use discipline and constraint and get out of there. If you have to fight, fight. But once again, never make it in your mind unless you have to. Unless you have to take a life. Don't take a life. And that's true. Because if they're trying to kill you, if you can't wound them to get them away from you, and the last resort is either them or you, then you got to do what you have to do. Once again, I'm not telling anybody to kill anybody. But I am saying defend yourself. Because nowhere does he tell us to be a target or sniper bait, or to just get the hell beat out of us and just keep on going. Turn the cheek does not mean turn the cheek literally. It does not mean let somebody cut you up one way and down the other way. That is not what that means. That was misinterpreted. Again, defend yourself, but if at all possible, situation. If at all possible. But to want to get into sin, and then we end up having the consequences for it. And don't listen to folks talking about, well, grace will cover you. Okay. Mercy is renewed daily, but mercy is renewed upon those that are walking in His truth and desire to do right, not continue to go and do the stuff that they know is wrong. And it is so. Trying to make excuses to get out there and do whatever we want to do. No. All right, let's read. 8. Yeah, we stopped at verse 7, right? All right, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, please.
It reads, "And the Kohen that offers any man's burnt offering, Kohen shall have himself the skin of the burnt offering which he has offered, and all that is baked in the oven, and all that is dressed in the frying pan, and the Kohens that offered it."
Now, hold on. Now, something about this, I'm not joking about it. They talking about, y'all know they ate fried chicken. They didn't have chicken back then. But they had the fried, they were the parched corn, or whatever the grain that was. But once again, we see that it was given to them. They were given also an offering. Again, this was their livelihood. This is how they were able to maintain their way of life and their lifestyle. They were able to do so. Are you hearing? And all the grain offering that is baked in the oven, and all that is dressed in the frying and in the pan, shall be the Kohens that offered it. That means they were responsible for it, and so they were also able to partake of it. It is so.
It is so.
All right, let's read. Mm-hmm.
And every grain offering mingled with oil, and dry shall the sons of Aharon, one as much as another.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the instruction of the sacrifice of offerings, which he shall offer unto Yahuwah. And if he offer it for thanksgiving, then he shall offer with the sacrifice of thanksgiving matzah, cake mingled and matzah wafers anointed with oil, and cakes mingled with oil, a fine of fried. And
And it is so almost like pastries. So they had, it wasn't like they was just eating bland food. They did a certain way, but it was still something that was great to the palate. You know, get right, like how Cody Yasmin does hers, how she set unleavened bread and it'd be so tasty. You know, when she once again we see you can bake it, you can fry it, and even have parts corn, not popcorn, but how they would take it and put it in that oil. And if you've ever had it, it's great. We have a recipe where you can do it, and we put a little more stuff in it, though, some onion and bell pepper. We kind of dress it up a little bit, but it's still nice to eat. All right, now look at the shalom offering. This was Nadab, offering eaten by the one bringing it. So not only you give it, but you were also one that was a partaker. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
You partook of it as well. Giving as a way of thanks to Yahuwah on joyous occasions. Samak is performed though instead of vedu. Praise to Yahuwah is offered. The offering must wave. The offerer must wave the offering before Yahuwah to Nufah, and part of it given to the Kohen. So that it was also a wave offering. They gave it. So once going to be waving something that was not complete and perfect. You don't want to be waving something and it had spots, defect. You wanted to wave something before Yahuwah, and you could be proud to offer it. A subset of the shalom offering was the thank offering to be given whenever an Ibram had reason to recite the Birkat Gomel, from some danger. This offering included no less than 40 loaves of commence, 30 without. That had to be consumed within 20 environment. So much food was so that the family and friends would come together and celebrate the greatness of Yahuwah for his acts of mercy and deliverance. In the days of Mashiach, all offerings will be annulled except for the thank offering. And I'm just reading this from Rabbah 9 and 7. This is Talmud. We get a feel of what people believe. Are you a sense of what different ones hold and regard and believe, and what people don't believe. And so this is what they did as a commemoration, and this is what they did as a time of celebration. This is what they did.
Yeah.
So when you see people that kind of add on, and you see them say, "Well, they sure doing a lot." Once again, because you see where people add on, it's the Talmud, the Maimonides, which are also a type of instructions. So you see these things, and when you see them, you see it is because some of these things were added, in other words, as a extension, just like we have the 10 Commandments and 13 Commandments, I believe it is, which is an extension of the 10 Commandments created by the sages. Are you following me?
Yes.
This is what we see. So extensions. Is it necessarily wrong? I won't say it is wrong, but I will say stick with the instructions that he gave us.
That's right.
Because when you stick with the instructions that he's given unto us, you can't go wrong. But sometimes when we start adding, that's when what is added over that what is supposed to be the instruction of how we're supposed to do it. So it's always best to do first with the foundational instruction. All right, let's read. So 12, we can read 12.
12 to
Yeah, we stopped there.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, Sean hadn't read. Come on, Sean, I'm sorry. Come on. No, I went down too far. I'm sorry. You stopped it on. We stopped at 11. Yeah, it was 11. Now we're about to read 12. Did you? Where'd you stop?
I read 12.
You read 12?
Yes.
Okay. That's right, I'm sorry. You stopped at 12, right? Okay. Yeah. All right, come on. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17.
Besides the cakes, he shall offer for his offering the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his shalom offerings. And of it he shall offer one out of the whole sacrifice for heave offering unto Yahuwah. And it shall be the Kohen's that sprinkles the blood of the shalom offerings, and the flesh of the sacrifice of his shalom offerings. For thanksgiving shall be the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. 16. But if the sacrifice of his offering be a vow or voluntary, it shall be eaten the same day that he offers the sacrifice, and the day after also the remainder of it shall be eaten. But the remainder of the flesh of the sacrifice the third day shall be burnt with fire.
And it is so. Once again, they will give instructions to eat, and if it was left over, some would be eaten and it could be left up, but the meat had to be burned. Couldn't keep it longer than that. Beside the cakes, he shall offer for his offering leavened lakim with the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his shalom offering. So there was a shalom offering and a thank offer that. Once again, we want to make maintain everything given unto us. And of it he shall offer one out of the whole sacrifice for an heave offering unto Yahuwah. And it shall be the Kohen that sprinkles the shalom offerings. And the flesh of the sacrifice of his shalom offerings for things shall be eaten the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave it until the morning. So that day they were eating. Well, they was feasting around the clock. They were feasting because these things will be offered. And they will be partakers of it. Not the blood, just the shalom offering of the bread and the flesh. And the flesh of the sacrifice, his shalom offerings for thanksgiving shall be eaten the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave any of it until then. So it had to be eaten. But if the sacrifice of his offering be a vow or an offering, it shall be eaten the same day that he offers. And the day after also, the remainder of it shall be eaten. So he had 2 days, because that's a lot of food. That's a lot. But the next day, once again, some stuff had to be eaten immediately. Some stuff could be eaten the next day, you eat it, and then some stuff, it had to be discarded. It on longer than that. But the remainder of the flesh of the sacrifice on the dirt on the day shall be burned with fire. And verse 18 says, and any of the flesh of the sacrifice of his shalom offering be eaten at all on the third day, it shall not be accepted, neither shall it be imputed unto him that offers it. It shall be an abomination, and the soul that eats shall bear his iniquity. So you couldn't eat it, and I'm persuaded by the third day it was no longer any good. So it would have probably spoiled. And so you have cultures that eat spoiled meat. You have cultures that eat raw meat. You have cultures that they do that. They'll eat meat when it's about spoiled, because that's what they do. How they do it, what they do. You have people that eat flipper seals. No, seal. They eat seals, flippers. They eat the flippers of seals. Them things, and they have to cook them 4 days. Who want to eat that old black, rubbery, look like something? I don't know. But they boil it 4 days, and it's still tough. And then when they finish, tough, but they eat it. They also eat this other kind of fish, they bury in the ground, and it spoils. And it's real stink. And when they eat it, it has them stink for about 2 to 3 weeks. But they say to eat it. I don't see how you can eat something like that and not die. But they do. And I see how you could eat a sea flipper. But they eat the flipper seal. They boil it for 4 days. How do you cook something for 4 days without it going bad? Meat is black. It's gristly and all that. Because when I like to watch documentaries and watch how sometimes when they go in different places and the meat. So you have to understand, when Yahuwah gave us he wanted us to be different, because there were cultures of people that was eating and doing all kinds of eating human flesh. They were eating the flesh of animals, and they would cook. And if they did, they would cook it where it would still have the blood, because the blood is the life. So they felt like they would basically get the life of the animal or the person when they consumed it with the blood of a person, that they would basically take their life. And so Yahuwah was specific about, don't you do that. Right. And don't you eat those things. Once again, so it's how people eat that, but that's what they do. But he's instructions. He said, if after that, don't eat it, because again, I'm going to believe that it would be spoiled, and he did not want us doing that and eating those things. All right, let's read. Five.
That touches any unclean shall not be eaten. It shall be burnt with fire, and as for the flesh, all that be clean shall eat it. Mm-hmm. But the soul that eats of the flesh of the sacrifice of shalom offerings that pertain unto Yahuwah, having his uncleanness upon him, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. Mm-hmm. Over the soul that shall touch any unclean thing, as the uncleanness of man, or any unclean, or any abominable unclean thing, and eat flesh of the sacrifice, shalom offerings, which pertain unto you, even that soul shall be cut off from his people. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yisrael, saying, Eat no manner of fat, or ox, or of sheep, or of goat. And it is so.
And he's not saying don't eat the meat. He said don't eat the fat. It's a shalom offering, and that belongs to him. Remember on last night when we were reading, I believe it was in Shema chapter 24, and how when they went up and they had the meal, that was a covenant meal. And while they were there, they saw a Yahusha. Now, what's important for us to understand is that when we partake, and even when we give of our offerings, those offerings us or maintaining us or keeping us in covenant with Yahuwah. That's why we can't just offer it any kind of way. We have to have clean hands. What do I mean by that? I mean our lives have to be clean. We can't just offer anything to him and our lives not meeting the criteria or the standard that he has put before us. And so once again, someone would say, well, how do I apply that today with things? We know we want to continue in the shalom. It means we need to make sure that our lives are right before him. You can't go wanting him a shalom offering and covenant with him, and you know you have not done everything that you're supposed to do. And you have not kept the feast, you have not kept any Sabbaths, but now you want to bring an offering and you want it to be a shalom offering to him. Well, until you repent and get it right, you can't. You can't keep going as though nothing happened. It's like somebody running over somebody going as though they never hit anybody. Mm-hmm. That's if you run, and if you caught, you will go to jail, especially if they die for manslaughter. So we can't expect to go through life, do whatever we want, and then present an offer to him and believe that it will be acceptable unto him. Right. It's important that we look at, once again, the fruit of our lips, our lifestyle, our giving of ourselves is what is supposed to be shown and seen in the day and time we're in. But never see us doing anything. Only thing they do is seeing us bumping our gums, right, talking about how much we help him, but never investing and never see us giving anything. Then where's your aha? Because they brought offerings. And for those that did not have a lot, they could bring turtles. They could bring flour. So it was not that it was for those that had. It was for everybody because everybody had. Are you following me? They may not have everything what everybody else had, but they still had it. And I believe that is because many were just like reckless with their finances. Reckless with. Now let's just use this as an example quickly. If you have a family, just say you had a family and they're greedy. Really, they're greedy. And everything they get, and they never consider, let's set this aside as an offering. Because one day we're going to need to give. But you eating up everything. So it's not that you don't have that, your priority is in the wrong place. You have not prioritized. And people don't like that because the first thing people say, well, there is no place where we're talking. Yes, it is. Yahuwah is not going to, in one breath, tell us to give, and then in another breath, and live in that he didn't see that we would be in a place where we would only have money. Now, I've said it, and I'll continue to say it. You got a side or a calf or a cow you want to, I'll give you the address. I'm serious. Because once again, giving not just of your lips, but also of your substance. They didn't just stand in the temple and say, well, who I would if I. They wouldn't make it in there. He knew what they had. And he knew everybody was capable of. But we listened to the lie of the enemy to tell us, well, you ain't gonna have anything. You wouldn't be able to eat. You wouldn't be able to buy anything. There's no such thing as you always have something. It's just, are you willing to share and do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And many of us don't want to, but we will invest in what we want every day, all the time. Are you following me? Once again, when you look at those that are living in our, have taken our lifestyle, you don't hear them people complaining about not having. You don't hear about other people complaining, oh, we don't have enough. They help one another, and they're going to maintain that because you got to understand, they are living what we're supposed. They're doing what we are supposed to be doing. Yes, even in the land of our enemies, they are doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Right.
How will the attention of the nation, us, or the nations to us, if we're coming up with the same old lie? Folk know they have money. Like I say, I'm not begging anything. I'm stating it and not debating it, and I'm showing you in the writings that they gave. And they didn't sit there and argue with anybody. And they didn't have issue with the priests and those that were offering it, because they had to go to them in order for it to be offered up. It's important that we understand. Don't be stingy. You know you're in a place, and you know prayer is being made for you, and you know that the Torah is being given, and you sound doctrine, and folks are staring on you, telling you better walk in this. And I'm not talking about somebody telling you that you blowed up because you are because you're stupid, and because you are worthless. That's crazy. No, I'm talking about somebody that's there talking, somebody that's there standing in the gap praying with you and for you, somebody that's talking clock, somebody that's saying we're going to see this thing through, somebody that is saying, look, this is what you need to do in order for this to be the outcome of it. Number one, we need to be committed. Some of us ain't committed to nobody and nothing. We committed to ourselves, and we think, oh, I've got this on lock. I've got this. I'm doing what I do, and it's all that matters. Because if I just make Yahuwah happy, how do you know what makes him happy when you out there alone? Most of the time, when I see in creation, something by itself is because it's either been kicked out or it left trying to find its own path or its own flock. But everything, it's a herd, a flock. Are you following me?
Yes.
Sticks together because there is choice. But we struggle with that. We struggle with that because we've been so in a day that people say what we want to hear. But I don't see where they gave money. Like I said, you got land, you got corn, you got all that stuff, and you got livestock. Send it. And the first thing people do is try to send it to a Christian pastor. They are not going to accept it. So why waste your time in trying to convince them what they're supposed to have? Because first and foremost, they're not supposed to be receiving tithes. They're not supposed to be receiving any kind of teaching against Torah. So why in the world would you even try to offer them what they are not even worthy of receiving? That's silly. We need to really look at how we process things. We do. We need to really go back and look at how we process things and stop trying to offer the word that's not belong to them. Because you know they're going to reject it. And I say, but they didn't even accept it. Why did you expect them to? They don't even believe Sabbath rest. They don't believe in the feast. Why would you even do that? Once again, we need to think more like Yahuwah and think constructions and his people and not outside. You got some that are rejected. So once again, let's look at that. All right, let's read.
Verse 24. And the fat of the animal that dies of its and the fat of that which is torn by other animals, when you use it any other use, you shall in no wise eat it.
Once again, don't eat it. You can use, but you're not supposed to eat it. Once again, torn animals or hunted animals are not to be eaten correctly by slitting the throat and letting all blood drip to the earth. Never ever. Once again, if you don't know how to dress meat and you don't know what you're doing, get somebody that's a professional. Because you'll mess that meat up. You don't know what's right. Let's read.
Verse 25. For whosoever eats the animal of which men offering make by fire unto you for, even the person that eats shall be cut off from his people. Moreover, you shall eat no manner of blood, whether it be of birds or of any animals, in any of your dwellings. Whatsoever person that it be that eats any manner of blood, soul shall be cut off from his people.
No fat, no blood. You know, and they have a saying in the world when you go to eat steaks, and I know I don't eat steaks, but I do. And when I go, but I really don't go to it's like that. Most of the time I have mine cooked here. My sons cook mine, so that don't burn it up, but you better make sure ain't no kind of pink in it. And they tell you, they said it's supposed to be a medical thing where you're supposed to eat a little bit of blood in the meat. We told some years ago, we told somebody we had to put somebody in check behind that. And they was talking about, well, the doctor says, I don't care what the doctor says. That's not, you don't do that. That's not right. You don't eat blood in your meat.
That's right.
And so they were saying a little blood. When you understand steak and you understand how steak is done, the only way blood can steak is you have to put it in there because there are no blood vessels.
Right.
If you cut steak and you know what you're doing, there are no blood vessels, but there is fat. That's why when you buy certain steaks, if you know what you're doing, you don't want to get nothing. Because if you get it too fat, then you got to go in there and cut, and by the time you finish, you got 7 ounces or a 7-ounce steak or 10-ounce steak, and 5 or 9.5 ounces of that is fat. So by the time you finish, you're going to end up with something like that. Once again, the saying with that is that if you have a little bit of fat in it, it keeps the meat from tough. Right. Well, the solution to that is you get a meat tenderizer. Say the right thing and say it the right way. A meat tenderizer. And you take it and you beat the steak. And by beating it and then seasoning it and pre-cooking it, it'll be great. And you don't have to, once again, it's about knowing how to prepare your food the right way and not having to buy it with the fat on it. You're to cut that off because you're not supposed to have it on there because you're not supposed to eat it. Once again, it's just knowing how to prepare your stuff to ensure that you are doing what is right because you don't want to be cut off behind eating some fat. I mean, seriously, sometimes we don't consider, especially if you're eating and you're around a lot of people or you're doing something and you're not considering it's just great to the bone. If you get a T-bone steak, filet mignon, or you get a ribeye and you're eating it and it's got that fat around it, and you ain't careful and you're not conscious of it, you just be eating and be greedy and just eat the whole thing up. It's the truth. So you have to be careful of how we do things. It's real and keeping it real so we will do what we're supposed to. Are y'all following me? Yes. And the best way too is when you're cooking chicken and it may have a fat on it, it's grilled. Or cut it off. That's what I do. Go through there and pull all that fat off of there. Are you following? Because you want to just make sure you're doing right. And it is so. Yes. All right, let's read.
28. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Yisrael, saying, He that offers the sacrifice of his shalom offerings, and will bring his oblation unto Yahuwah the sacrifice of his shalom offerings. And it is so.
All right, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, please.
Right shoulder shall you give unto the priest offering for the sacrifice of the peace offering. See one of the sons of Aaron shall offer the blood of the peace offerings, shall have the right shoulder for his part. For the weighted breast of the east shoulder have I taken of which Yahuwah commanded them, the children of Israel, in that day, and he anointed them by the generations. This is the law of burnt offering, of the meat offering, and of the sin offering, and of the consecrations, and of the sacrifice of the peace offering, which Yahuwah commanded Moshe in Mount Sinai, on the day he commanded the children of Israel to offer it unto Yahuwah in the wilderness of Sinai.
And so, all right, chapter 8. We'll read chapter 8, verse 6, and then we're going to go to Hebrews. We'll pick it up from there. Chapter 8, verse 31, we're going to go to Hebrews. Okay.
Chapter 8, verse 36. So Aharon and his sons did all the things which you were commanded by the hand of Moshe.
All right. Now, let us go to Hebrews chapter 7. We're going to get verse 23, and we'll read over chapter 8. Once again, instructions are so are for us in following. They were given. Their provisions came because of their service, and as they continued to serve in the temple, that's how they would maintain their lifestyle and maintain their household because of what was given to them, but because of the service as well that they offered. So they knew what parts they was to get. There was no misunderstanding about what they were supposed to get and what they were not supposed to get. Things started going crazy, started being disobedient. And it is so. All right, and we're going to start at verse 23. Read 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Chapter 7, starting with 23. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they truly were many Kohanim, because they all suffered death and could not continue. But this man, because he continues forever, has an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore he is able also to sit for the uttermost that come to power by him, seeing he lives forever to make intercession for them. For such a Kohen Hagadol became for us, who was set apart, separate from sinners, and made higher than the Shemayim, who need not daily, as those Kohanim Hagadol, to offer up sacrifice, first for his own sins, and then for the people's. For this he did once, when he offered himself up.
And so, now, once again, starting at verse 23, we're looking at 20. But this man, because he continues forever, has an unchangeable priesthood, Yahusha. The problem with the others is that in the foot says, the human priest, which Yahushua was a human priest, but it says is that they all died. He did not. He gave up his life, but yet he came back and he lived. The priest suffered from a technical hiccup called death, while Yahushua not suffer from such a hiccup, because we understand that he was the Son of God. Are you following me? So he did not. He died. He was resurrected, but he was resurrected. So it's important we understand he lives on. Therefore, he is able also to save them to the utmost that come to power by him, seeing he lives forever to make intercession. Once again, so many people do not read this. I was looking at something the other day, and they were calling the Brit Hadasha, the New Testament, the devil, because they were saying, well, it's only in Greek. It is not. It was written in Hebrew and then into Greek and then Latin, which is English. And saying because there was no record of it. I'm like, if you don't have a record of it, because you haven't found the record, doesn't mean that it is not valid. This is another problem. Where are your sources? Where are your sources? So many people have these lack of source. I want to say that the Brit Hadashah, which they constantly call the New Covenant, if you continue to follow New and Old Testament and New Testament, you go outside of truth and lack understanding. The Torah and the Haftarah is the covenant, the first covenant, Torah, and from the first portion of the Torah, then you get the instructions and the Nevim, and then you get the Hadashah, which is the new covenant. It's not new, it's renewed. And so as we continue the renewed covenant, we understand the renewal had to come to bring the prostituting sheep back into that place when the time had come, and the time is so now we see even Ezekiel 37 where it talks about the branch, and it talks about us coming together as one house or as one branch. It's important that we understand that. If we didn't have the Brit Hadashah, we would not have the renewed covenant. Without the renewed covenant, we would not be able to live. We would be. This is so important for us as a people to remember, because there are so many people out there and saying that the Brit Hadashah is not valid. They're saying that Yahusha is not real. It said, and remember the question asked, who believes that she is the son of Yahuwah? It is a question, and there are many people that answer the question, but now have defected or given up their answer, because now they're not even believing it. Once again, you have to understand, people are citing a whole lot, and then they're reading verses all out of context and not understanding them. So you got this where people are saying, we've been tricked, we've been beguiled, and this is not valid to you. If it's not valid to you now, it's never valid to you then. That means you had a lack of understanding, because you have to understand, if some man is overtaken, then the enemy can't come into the house.
Right.
Can't come into your house. Now, first and foremost, if you understand that Yahusha is going to be the strong man, and that he's going to be the one that sets the standard, then how is somebody to come in and throw him out the house if he's living there? He's the security of our life.
Right.
So if in other words, you put yourself in, and you put Yahusha behind you, he's supposed to be in front of us, and we're supposed to be behind him, so that anything that comes away, guess what? He will be our protector.
That's right.
People be getting in all this stuff, and they go in there half-cocked, don't know what they talking about, haven't gotten all the information, and they go off of one person saying, I found this verse that says he ain't real. That's all it took, one verse to upseat you from years of living this life. One verse. That belief in him was not strong at all.
That's right.
At all. You can't defect now. And with the information out there, I don't care what people come to you with. If they come to you with this and they're trying to show you in the scriptures, you got to make understand the verses. You read those verses, and if you read them without understanding, you would believe that that Yahuwah is the only one and Yahusha is invalid. But you have to understand why he says what he says, when he says what he says. He's talking to a people to get their attention. Right. With I am Yahuwah, and beside me there is no other. He is talking about the other idols out there. Yahusha is not an idol. He is our Redeemer. And without him, you are not qualified for the renewal of the covenant. So we got to have him, and we got to keep him in our lives, or you won't be brought into the covenant. Right. We were not under the first covenant. Are you followers and forefathers were? But now that the covenant is renewed, it gives us access to get in there. Right. Without it, how will we get in there? We couldn't. We can't. So we have to have it. This is why we are studying. This is why we are learning. Does it mean that we don't have access to to understand the first? Absolutely not. Yes, we do have the right to understand it and to walk and understand what it represents and what it means. But without the renewal, we would not have access. Because without the blood, there would be no redemption. So once again, it's important that we do not defect and we do not allow and talk all this craziness. Yahushua's priesthood does not change. The only one that was able and qualified to pass every test and make it to be in that place, the seat, right, the right hand of the Father, to make it for us and to keep us covered and keep us from failing and keep us so that we retain our walk. How can you not have him? Who else is qualified to do so? Nobody. Nobody else is qualified. We can pray all day long because we intercede and we pray. But Yahushua covers us all. And without him, who covers you? Nobody. Nobody. Therefore, he is able all save them to the uttermost that come to power by him, seeing he lives for to make an intercession for them, for us, not them. You have to make it personal. For such a Kohen Hagadol became who is set apart, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made them the Shemayim. It's important that we understand who need not daily, as those Kohen Hagadol, to offer up sacrifice first for his own sin and then for the people's. For this he did one when he offered up himself. So when he offered up himself, he did it then. But when we look at her, as we read, they had to constantly offer up for themselves. They had to constantly make sure that they were right and not being influenced and not being persuaded to go outside of that. Now, Yahushua did not have to lay down a sin for himself first, unlike the other human priests who suffered from sinful flesh but he offered his sacrifice once and for all, once and for people of Yisrael. So once again, he was both. Are you following? He was our shalom offering. Because it is he that allowed us between us and Yahuwah. Because as long as we were estranged from him, but now that we are walking with him and we are in him and he's in the shalom is there through our obedience. But without Yahushua, we would not have. That's right. Are you understanding?
Yes.
He was our sin offering.
That's right.
His blood covers us, gives us access. Are you following me?
Yes.
So he was sacrificed. He didn't need to give himself 5 times. He only had to present himself once. That offering did it all for us.
Right.
So it's important that we understand that. He didn't have to come. He didn't have to go. This is why it's important that we understand. And this is why, and I'm saying somebody may think it's irrelevant. This is why when it comes down to it, and we hear about the house of Hillel and Shema, you have many that say that Yahushua learned under Hillel. I beg to differ. Because in order for them to say he learned up under Hillel was higher than him and have a knowledge above him, that is not so.
Right.
That is not so. It's important that we understand the teacher of Yahushua. But you have to understand Yahushua is the teacher because he is Torah. So who can teach the Torah? Nobody. The Torah teaches us. Right. We accept it and live by it. So this is truly important for us to once again. And the reason I'm saying this is that I understand Yahushua. He didn't need to be taught.
That's right.
He was the teacher. What is the one that instructed him? Are you following? Once again, it's important that we understand that. Does that mean that he was not man? No, he was all man. but he was also all the son of Yahuwah. All right, let's 28. I mean 28, chapter 8. And we're going to verse 28 and chapter 8, verse 6.
For the Torah ordains men, Kohen Haggadah, which have infirmity. But the word of oath, which was said, makes the Son who is consecrated forevermore. Chapter 8, verse 6. But now has he obtained a more excellent service, by how much also is he the mediator of a more advantageous covenant.
Advantageous, I'm sorry.
Advantageous covenant, which was established upon more advantageous promises.
And it is so. Now, that comes 2909. Cretan means a more advantageous covenant. The covenant had no fault with it. Things just improved even more with Yahusha. But what needs to be remembered, this was all mentioned in the Torah for the Torah followers. Once again, important that the first covenant was not obsolete and it was not wrong. It's just that Yahusha came to fulfill it and improve it. Are you understanding? Yes. To improve it and to fulfill it. Not to come to say it's no, it's no great. It's not okay. It's bad, and I got to do away with all this because it's no, not it at all. Once again, if he had not come, we would not have access to the covenant. Now, I did this kind of in reverse. We're going to go to Jeremiah 7. We're going to look at verse 1. Then we'll go to chapter 8, look at verse 3. And then we'll go to chapters 22 to 24. Okay? Once again, we're going to look at the prophetic Jeremiah's point. Once again, we realize that our people throughout the ages just kept on and continued, even as they continue in the time we live in, continue to not follow the instructions. We're at chapter 7, Jeremiah chapter 7. We're going to look at verse 21. Okay, verse 21.
Jeremiah 7:21. For host Elohim of Israel, who should burn offering unto you the sacrifices and eat flesh. For I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them, that I brought them not this way concerning burnt offering and sacrifices. But this day them saying, obey my voice, and I will be your Elohim. And walk ye in all my ways, and make me dwell unto you. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels of their evil heart, and went backward, and not forward.
And it is so. All right, 20. Now, once again, do we see what took place? Just once again, we have to look at this because it's important. But this thing commanded I them, saying, obey my voice, be your power, and you shall be my people, and walk you in all ways that I commanded you, that it may be well to you. Once again, whenever there is warning, it is because the people have already started and gotten locked in to doing wrong. They have already gotten in, and now they're doing wrong. And the crazy thing, and the reason why I say crazy thing, is that they walked in truth. They walked. He's warned. They saw the punishment that could come upon them being disobedient. But because of being stubborn and not fully acting and following the instructions, this is what happens. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand this. Very important to understand these things. Yehukanan Allen chapter 2, verses 6. But whoever keeps his Torah, truly the Ahab of Yahuwah is perfected in him. Like we are in him. How do we know we're in him? When it is perfected, not become perfected in them because they did not Ahab Yahuwah. Not them, just those, the majority of them. He who says, he abideth ought himself also to walk just as he walked. If we do not walk in truth and we do not have Yahuwah, yeah, go ahead and turn it off. I just saw it correct. All right, sorry, we have to change our book, but we're not going to change that to serve our world. But we are still here. It is darker, but we are still here. Once again, I do it for the lighting, but we're still here. Now, once we see where they were warned, and we see if we don't have Yahuwah's instruction, then his will not be perfected in us. Because perfection comes by doing consistently, diligently. When we don't do it diligently and consistently, we will not have an ahab for it. It's not one of those things you become a part of today and automatically you stick with it, you stay with it, and you get stronger. You have to apply what you read to your life. You have to apply what he has given to us. And unless that is done, we will not meet our consistency. And they did not. They played the harlot, they played poor, they continued to do it. Are you following me?
Yes.
It's important that we see what took place. They did not, now listen, they did not, nor incline their ear, but walked in the counsels and of their evil heart. And watch this. And went backward and not forward. Are you hearing me? Now listen what it also refers to. Since the day that Abbas came forth out of the land of Mitzrayim to this day, I have even sent to you servants, the prophets, daily rising up early and sending them. Yet they hearken not to me, nor incline their ear, but hardened their neck. They did worse than the Abba. They did worse. Why? Because they would not adhere to instructions. And when you don't follow the instructions, you will find yourself going backwards and not forward.
That's right.
You will find yourself climbing. And no matter how many times people deny it, truth.
Right.
This is why we must do it. All right. Let's chapter 8, verse 3. Just one verses with it. Chapter 8, verse 3. 747. All right, come on. Mm-hmm.
8, verse 3 reads, "Be chosen rather than life, by all the residue of them that remain of this evil family, which remain in all the places where the wrath says you who are opposed."
Mm-hmm. And it is. And the death shall be rather than life, by all the residue of them that remain of this evil family, remain in all the place have driven them, says Yahuwah of hosts. Mm-hmm. Now listen at verse 4. I know we're reading 1. Moreover, you shall say, shall they fall and not rise? That's the question. Shall? Why then is this people of Judea slidden back by a perpetual backsliding? Hold fast deceit, they refuse to return. Now, it's important once again, we can't just be hearers, we have to be doers.
That's right.
We have to be doers, and you have to do exactly what he has commanded us to do. All right, let's look at chapter 9, verses 20 through 24.
Speak thus saying, behold, even the carcasses of men shall down upon the open field, and as the handful as a man shall gather them. Thus says Yahuwah, but not the wise man glory in his wisdom, neither let the mighty man, let not the rich riches, but let him that glories with glory, and that he understands and knows me, that will which exercise loving kindness, righteous ruling, and right in the earth. For in these things I delight. So,
It is so. Once again, we're not supposed to give credence to any things except verse 24. Now, I'm not saying that you have to understand why he's saying this, because men, it says, thus says you, not the wise man, basically get glory or be pompous in his wisdom. When you have wisdom, and now that's the only thing that you basically celebrate is your wisdom. Not because Yahuwah gave it, but you feel like it's yours. Neither let the mighty man his might. Let not the rich in his riches. Why? Because you take that what you by your own hands, and you make that basically the strength that would you bring or give praise to. Verse 4 says, but let them, or let him that esteem in this, that he understands and knows me. See, that's one of the things. The children of Israel got the instructions, got a chance to see the heart of Yahuwah, but yet in all that still to stand and know him.
Right.
For him to say that means that he is understandable and that he can be understood, but you have to do it and know him. That I am Yahuwah, which exercises kindness, right ruling, and righteousness, uprightness. For in these things I delight, says Yahuwah. Are you understanding?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. Listen what he says in verse 25. Behold, the days come, says Yahuwah, that I will punish all of them which are circumcised in the flesh. All of the Mitzrayim, Yehudans, the Edomites, and the Ammon, and Moab, and all the desert dwellers round about, hair short, at the temples. For all these Gentile nations are uncircumcised, and I will do so because none of them are circumcised according to Yahuwah's sight. The house of Yisrael are uncircumcised in the heart. Well, it was so much stuff going on just like today, and one of the things that people tend to do when they get first thing they do is corner. They get their lining. The first thing they get them corners put in there, and that's not what they're supposed to do. Cut your hair. You're not supposed to get your hair lined and all that great stuff. I ain't saying you're not supposed to, but I don't believe that you're supposed to have your stuff looking like triangles. I don't believe that. I believe you're supposed to look decent, and you're supposed to have your like I say, looking nice. But I don't believe that your hair should look like, I don't believe that at all. And I believe that when you do have yourself taken care of, you ought to be somebody that know what they're doing and how to do it, and not have you looking. I don't believe you should look like Frankenstein or the werewolf either. But I do believe that you ought to have it to where it's nice. At the same time, rounding or cornering the corner head. I don't believe that. I believe just what it says. So, once again, important, but it says, I'm going to deal with them that are circumcised. And so, circumcising the flesh. The reason why he's going to punish, they're not following the truth and they're not doing what they're supposed to. And so if we don't do what we're supposed to, it's going to happen. We're going to be punished. We cannot go on and think that it's okay to live any kind of life and do whatever we want to do and think that we're going to reap the benefit. That's not going to happen. And so it's important that we understand. Once again, understand. Follow the command. The theme was command. One word, command. He commanded them to do. He commanded them to bring the offerings in the manner that he gave them the description. And we got to do the same thing. We can't do outside of that. And when we do that, we'll find our lives being moved by him, and we'll find ourselves being in shalom with him. And it is so. And it is so. Come on, put your hands together. Keep your head up, keep your shoulders square, keep your heart and your feet in on the Torah, because you can't go wrong if you continue to follow in his instructions. Once again, I am Prophetess Sabrina 777. I am the leader of Message Yahuwah's Kingdom, a belief ministry located in South Carolina. I want you to remember here at Message Yahuwah's Kingdom, Great Belief Ministries, this is the place where the Torah does the body. Until next time, may Abba Yahuwah Baruch Atah and keep you in his shalom until we meet again. Also, I want you to remember to touch by Champion TV, a place where the is reside. And it is so. And it is so.